Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's Friday Forum. My name is Leandra Shelton, and I serve as the Expanded Learning and Community Engagement Manager with the Foundation for Tacoma Students. The Foundation's mission is to build and strengthen the Graduate Tacoma community-wide movement of over 350 community partners to help every child achieve success from cradle to career, from cradle to college and career. As part of our organization's response to COVID-19, Friday Forums were launched to provide relevant and locally focused information and resources to our community partners and families. Over the past several weeks, we've discussed the state of Tacoma Public Schools, heard examples of how partners are engaging learners virtually, and explored how our community is working to support some of our vulnerable populations, such as students with disabilities. Throughout these discussions, a theme has emerged, one that we know to be true and is felt even more so through being distanced. And that is that education and learning is so much more than content. Oftentimes, it's the relationships that are built with teachers, counselors, advisors, coaches, out-of-school program staff, and mentors that propel students forward in their learning and connect them to their next steps. It's within these relationships where talents of students are explored and success is celebrated. It's also where the challenges and needs of our students can be identified, which sparks the question, during this time of distance learning and living, what does mentoring from afar look like? Today, I have the pleasure of serving as moderator for a panel of experts who are deeply involved in supporting young people through mentorship. And with that, I would like to introduce our panelists. All right, so panelists, if you can, when I introduce you, just give a wave so those who are watching and listening know who is speaking. But we are going to welcome today CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Puget Sound, Paula Sardinas.
Hello.
Welcome. And also joining Paula from Big Brothers Big Sisters is Executive Director of Tacoma Pierce County, Diana Comfort.
Hello, everybody.
From Palmer Scholars today, we have Director of Scholar Support, Tiffany Williams. And last but certainly not least is owner and founder of Triple Impact Coaching, Arvin Mosley. All right, and with that, we are going to give each of our panelists an opportunity to share with us some things that they are doing to help support and mentor students, as well as what it means to be a mentor. And we are going to kick it off with Big Brothers Big Sisters and Paula.
Hello. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me today. I have a 30-year relationship with the organization because I was a little. And so I always like to tell people I'm living proof of what happens when mentoring is taken seriously and you have those lifelong relationships with your kids. I came on board with the organization on March 23rd, and I don't think any of us could have imagined the impact of COVID, meaning our children would go home, businesses would shut down, we'd have 28 million people facing unemployment, and there would be so much uncertainty. One of the things I love about our organization is we already had a critical infrastructure in place that said that we provide two of the three things that kids really need, right? They need food, they need shelter, and they need love. And so we were pretty adept at providing the love to our one-on-one mentoring or group mentoring project, but we introduced a new program called the Fresh Pantry, which has been providing much needed food for food insecurity for both our littles and the community. And so as I look over the past 4 or 5 weeks of dealing with COVID-19, I think that's been one of our greatest impacts, ensuring that any child, any family, any community in Puget Sound, Tacoma, as far out as Puyallup, if you need a bag of fresh groceries, then we're here to provide them. We provided just over 171,000 pounds of food, which fed about 119,000 families during this mission critical time. And so thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to having some greater conversations and talking about some of the changes we face and how we've been adapting to COVID-19.
Yes, and I would like to pick it up from there. This is Diana with Big Brothers Big Sisters here in Tacoma, Pierce County. And I just want to say, Paula, we are so grateful to have your leadership backing us up at this time and proud to introduce you to our Pierce County crew. And also thanks to the Foundation for Tacoma Students folks for pulling these Friday forums together and working to act as a clearinghouse for the much needed resources. I want to echo what I just heard Paula saying, that amidst all of this shutdown of supports and systems, we are hearing our families express real insecurity about making ends meet, just being unsure about how food is going to come into the house. The truth is the kids are home and they're eating like kids. So obviously parents are very anxious about basic needs and being also on top of it asked to be their child's educator starting now. So more than challenging times. And our commitment has been to figure out how to stay connected to each and every one of our families and make sure that they know that we are walking with them and bolstering the caring, consistent mentoring relationships that were already established, but making sure as well that our families are secure in with their needs. So the first step we took was to survey our families for technology needs and connectivity. Obviously, not all families are equipped with the same resources, but almost all of them have a phone. So we are making it work. In addition to sharing the resources from the TacomaLearns.org website, we compiled a list of activities, some games and academic ideas to give to our mentors and kids so that they have activities to do together on a virtual platform. And a couple of the examples, just to pick a few, were, let's see, we've seen Exploring the World on Google Earth, reading together. There's an example from one match that I heard about. They're both reading the book, The Watsons Go to Birmingham. Baking, a mentor dropped off baking ingredients and they baked together on FaceTime. Pigeon games, Zoom games. This is Cut Pong and Mancala. And please don't ask me exactly how those work because we are all on a steep learning curve. But basically we're looking to support our families with and kids with things that we're hoping will keep them engaged and learning. And everyone is learning truthfully. What it's looked like is most of our matches are meeting on a weekly video call or telephone call and supplementing that with additional activities. That's community-based work. And our school-based programs where our matches haven't typically involved the family, have only seen each other at a school and connected in the context of school. We've reached out to establish permissions from the parents and the mentors to share contact information, and I can share more about that in the Q&A perhaps, but I just want to share briefly this video of our staff member, Stacy Downing, reaching out to connect to families who had never met her before. If our wonderful can do the video.
The dog is so cute.
Okay, well, I'm not sure we can hear her. So since I'm not sure we can hear her, I'll just say that that Stacy, making sure that all of our enrolled kids continue to benefit from access to a mentor at this time. And we also sent out a lot of additional information about how we're going to walk alongside these matches. But I think as it's just getting off the ground, what's exciting is that in the case of these matches, we may be seeing additional connections and additional contact and we're excited to see these matches sort of taking off. So I guess I want to just close by reiterating that we are responding with tangible help like groceries. And I want to plug the weekly fresh markets that Paula mentioned on site 253 from 2 to 4 p.m. today. And next week with Tacoma Shine Youth Athletics at Bethlehem Baptist. And I will hand the mic back to Leandra.
Thank you so much, Paula and Diana, for the work that you are doing. I was actually on a call yesterday, Paula, and I got to hear you give a really big, passionate moment of like, you know what, we just need to do whatever it takes. And it's pretty obvious that Big Brothers Big Sisters of Puget Sound is doing that. You're meeting basic needs of students by feeding them and then connecting with them virtually and being creative. For those of you who didn't get to see the video because it's kind of choppy, if you want to see it, that video is a really good example of how the mentors are reaching out to their families. So if you're looking for tips of it, I would encourage you to do that. So next we're gonna kick it over to Tiffany from Palmer Scholars to talk to us a little bit more about working with older students, particularly those who are looking to transition into college.
All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here so that you guys don't have to look at me this whole time. Let me see, and I'll apologize. When you do see my video, my camera is not great, so let's see. Not sure. You guys can see the main slide, right? Okay, can everyone see the whole screen now? Okay, looks good. Okay. So yeah, I'm a member of Graduate Tacoma and the Director of Scholar Support for Palmer Scholars. And I wasn't sure how many people on the call today would have familiarity with Palmer Scholars and what we do. So just briefly was going to go over what our work is. So we have two branches. Palmer Scholars is sort of the overarching name of our organization, but we actually just recently started a second branch called Palmer Pathways. So we recruit students when they're juniors in high school for the Palmer Scholars Program and support them all the way through college graduation. So roughly, 5 or 6 years, depending on how long it takes them. And then for the Palmer Pathways Program, they have to have already graduated from high school or have their GED. And we support them through the completion of a career in the trades, which could be the college route, that could be the apprenticeship route, it could be on the job training, but we support students ages 16 to 24, more or less. And all of the students in our program identify as people of color and students from low-income backgrounds. So that's just a brief overview. In terms of our mentoring work, we sort of see our mentoring work in two parts. We have formal volunteer mentors that we assign to students in their senior year of high school, and those mentors follow them all the way through. But we also, as staff members, see ourselves as mentors. So, we have once per twice month events or trainings with them where we really connect with them for months before they're even matched with their mentors. So that relationship kind of becomes a mentor relationship as well, just to varying degrees depending on how each of us staff members connect with students. But then once students are in college, the trainings end and we go through and have campus visits with them. Most of our students end up in the state of Washington, so we go and visit them and have one-on-one meetings and take them out to dinner. And then just throughout the year, we also have check-ins and meetings as needed via phone, text, FaceTime, whatever it is. So actually, once our students go off to college, a lot of that support that we're giving, personal, professional, academic support, a lot of it is virtual, which is great because I think the message there is, it can be done well. Organizations are doing virtual mentoring very well already. And so we just are continuing that work with maybe some minor adjustments. So, our mentors, the ask of them is twice per month contact and then quarterly, once per month in person. So in terms of how that's shifted, our trainings obviously have had to move online. We're not able to make those in-person visits right now, but those students are with their families. And so that, disconnect of, hey, I'm in college and I don't have anyone, from my family to visit me isn't as much of a concern because most of them are living at home with family right now. And in terms of our volunteer mentors, we're just having to ask them to be really creative and use video chat more. I just had a young lady message me the other day and said, my mentor and I are starting weekly Zoom meetings, which I think is actually more than they were even meeting prior to that. So some great things coming out of that. So the other shift in terms of what we do that we're seeing is, we always on some level are offering basic needs support to these students. If there's a housing concern or whatever the concern is, food on campus, if they need an emergency scholarship, helping them locate those resources if we're unable to provide it. But just, it's on a much larger scale now. Our work is having to move a little further down on that scale of Maslow's hierarchy of needs that on a larger number of students at a time, we're really looking at, okay, do you have enough food this week? Do you have access to all these things that you need? So somewhat of an adjustment, but, thankfully we already had some supports in place that we were used to offering. So some of those things we're offering, similar to what you're hearing from Big Brothers Big Sisters, a resource list that we send out every week. I just have it in a big Google Doc, and I update whatever I update on every Friday is in yellow, so it's very easy for the scholars just to go in and say, okay, what did Tiffany update this week? What's the new information? And it's just things like the fact that Tacoma, is offering that rental assistance, the fact that the Empowerment Center is offering free food, or the fact that Tacoma Community House is offering free food on certain days of the week. So things that are very easy, tangible. They don't have to go to a link and then read about it. It's just right there. Here's what I can do for my family. We also have a needs questionnaire that they can fill out at any point in time to say, hey, can you call me because I'm struggling right now, and here's the areas where I'm struggling or where my family is struggling. So we've had, I think I would say 25 or so of our students fill that out, and we've been able to then provide them with gift cards, loan out laptops to students who didn't have access to technology, or maybe not enough technology in the home. And then also providing referrals. Like I said, I had a young lady who I had found out about the Tacoma Community House offering food boxes to 50 families one night, and I texted her and said, hey, you guys should really go tomorrow. And they did, and she was so excited to be able to get that food, because they were really, really struggling and not feeling like the food they'd gotten from food banks was sufficient for their family. So a lot of just referring. In terms of the challenges we're seeing, so some of the same kind of stuff that Diana was mentioning. Students just worried about food, worried about bills. A young lady telling me that because they're home all the time, bills have doubled. So utility bill that used to be $150 is now $300. So really worried about that kind of thing. Being able to access basic supplies at affordable prices, because maybe you're used to paying $1.99 for a bottle of soap, and now the only soap you can find is $4. So having to make that choice between, do I spend these dollars I have right now in the gift card on soap, or do I go ahead and buy more food? So just difficult having to make choices like that, because there's a lot of job loss, a lot of hours cut, and just fear of working. So many of the students I've talked to said, I don't want to work. I could go get a job right now, but I have an immunocompromised family member at home, so I don't want to risk bringing COVID-19 back into my home. So in terms of other things that we're seeing, lack of motivation. I had a student just tell me the other day that she dropped out of 2 of her running start classes because she's like, well, I don't need them to graduate. And it's just difficult to be doing this online thing, and just the lack of structure in their day around online school is really leading to a lack of motivation and some mental health issues from some students. Just general disappointment around not getting to celebrate that rite of passage of graduation is really tough for a lot of our students right now. They're worried about their grades and how those grades might affect college enrollment for the high school students in particular. At least most colleges are allowing the pass and fail option, but even students attempting to go to grad school are trying to balance is it worth it to go pass or fail, or do I need to really try for that A? So although I do think that colleges are letting students make that decision pretty late in the game, thankfully, depending on the school. But also just balancing school and childcare in some cases. I have a young lady who's having to take care of younger brother and sister while she's doing her own school. Technology. So, just one thing that's important to mention is, when you're asking questions, I always tell mentors when they're talking to students, you have to ask very pointed questions or you're not going to get the information you really want. Very specific. So just asking, do you have access to a laptop and internet isn't really enough, because there might be access to a laptop and internet, but maybe it's split between mom and dad and 3 siblings, so just trying to make sure that they've really got what they need, not just, the answer to the little question that you asked. So other things affecting their progress, students in college, they really need those internships. Those are the keys to getting their first jobs when they get out of college. So some lost internships, lost summer enrichment opportunities. I mean, there are still some that are running, but some that it can be demotivating to a student to spend all this time to complete an application for a summer enrichment opportunity that may or may not happen. So that's tough right now to convince our students apply anyway, and of course, loss of course progression. We've had some students, in college debate, should I go ahead and enroll this term or should I not? So that's also a challenge. So in terms of just thoughts around school closure and how this is affecting students at both ages, these are kind of the questions that we've gotten from some students, or questions that I've had. So for high school age, what does this mean for my college admissions? Kind of like I mentioned before, should I even bother studying for the ACT or SAT? Because not all schools have said that they're no longer requiring the testing in the fall for the class of 2021. Will I be prepared for or have reliable internet to take my AP tests, because they're going all online now? So that's potentially a challenge for some. If the internet that they told us that they have is actually just their phone data, maybe that's not a really strong connection. For college-age students, we have students who are going off to school to live in an apartment with friends, and they don't know whether or not they should renew their lease, because if school's not going to be in session in the fall and they're going to be living at home still, then they don't want to have that expense. So that's a difficulty. Should they choose a different college for the first year? If it's going to be online, why would you pay tuition at Gonzaga when you could be paying Pierce College if you're just online anyway? So we're having to really have those conversations with our students and have them cover all their bases, Should I enroll at all? In fact, I had a young lady who was going to start school this term. She'd sort of taken a gap year, just been trying to get her stable housing all year, and she was going to start this quarter, and then decided, well, I don't feel comfortable starting my very first term in college online, so she's not even enrolled right now, which is really unfortunate. And then taking a gap year, if the student doesn't start in the fall, will they lose college-bound scholarships? So that's a good question for WASAC that I need to actually ask, because you have to enroll in college within a year or by that first year after you graduate. And so, like in the case of this young lady, I'm not really sure what will happen there if we're still doing online school in the fall and she still chooses not to enroll. So lots of challenges that we're dealing with. And the positives, though, like I said, you can mentor very effectively virtually, just using the students' preferred technology, preferably. And the tools that we're learning now we'll take into the post-COVID-19 world, which is neat. Like the Zoom is great. There's things I've learned that was like, we should have been using Zoom all along for the screen sharing ability with students when I'm helping them, fill out a college application. If you're able to, of course, with our organization, we are. I know not everyone has that capability, but mentors are more likely than ever to catch mentee needs because they're so hyper conscious right now. So that's really great. When oftentimes they tend to think, oh, well, they're this high achieving young adult, they don't actually need me, when in reality, mentors always are needed, but sometimes they don't feel like it as much. So right now they're really tuned in, which is great. And just a few resources. I know these are tiny, but I thought maybe the PowerPoint could be shared after the fact, and you could see on here. Here's just some suggestions over on the right-hand side that I made to my mentors, things they could do to connect virtually. On the left, there's a little one-pager from Mentor, the national mentoring organization. And this is just a little snippet to give an example of what my Google Doc resource list looks like for students. And then also an article here from the National Mentoring Resource Center. So yeah, I hope I didn't go too far over on my time there, but in some, really still able to do great work with students virtually, and really feeling like we're able to support them.
Tiffany, thank you so much. You really were able to pinpoint and highlight a lot of those disparities and the challenges. And I think seeing it laid out like that, it's that moment of realization of like, there is so much happening for all of our students, right? And they are compounded in how they are navigating both, what are my next steps? How do I learn with, like, how do I, get food on the table or make sure that this is happening? So I appreciate you sharing it that way. And also identifying that there are some major bright spots and positives, right? You've got some mentors who are able to really connect and identify those things. And oftentimes, I know for me, the Zoom meetings are like a bright spot during my day, even though sometimes, Zoom fatigue is real, but to be able to connect with somebody is pretty integral in like helping with our mental health. So thank you for the work that you are doing, and Palmer Scholars, and for sharing that information. We are now going to go over to Coach Mosley, who can share with us a little bit more about what it is to be a mentor and how we can do that effectively.
Good. All right. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me, you guys. Just briefly want to touch on what the role of a mentor is. The name of my company is Triple Impact Coaching, and I use that triple because that's kind of how my mind thinks. I think our role is threefold. I think we're teachers, we're leaders, and we're caretakers. I think a good mentor is a teacher. Our job is to educate. Our job is to have current knowledge, and our job is to have valuable knowledge about the resources, about whatever programs and whatever kind of kids we serve. So I think our number one thing is to be a teacher, right? At this moment, to be able to educate and provide knowledge for our people that we serve. The other thing I said was being a leader. And I love that quote that social distancing does not mean emotional distancing, right? And I think right now we have to lead these young people. They need our positivity more than ever. They need our, language matters. I think we would all agree that language matters, words matter. So when you're talking to your mentees, the leadership that you can show them in how you talk about this moment, right? I think sometimes I've been on a lot of calls that people are avoiding the word COVID-19 or they're avoiding the reality of why we're on Zoom right now. We're on Zoom because we have a stay-at-home shelter, and everybody's kind of tiptoeing around that sometimes. I think as a leader, I think we need to address that head on, and I think the language that we use needs to be positive, and it needs to be uplifting. I see sometimes on TV that I see some folks, talking heads, saying things like, we're in a battle right now, we're in a fight. Well, nobody walks around feeling good about battles or fights. Nobody walks around feeling good about being at war. And so as we start to understand the words that we use, the language that we use with our mentees, we need to start to use that positive and uplifting. Again, I'm not saying to sugarcoat the reality that we're in, but to make sure that you're not compounding their fears and their frustrations by the words that you use. So you're a teacher, you're a leader, and then lastly, you're a caretaker. I talk about being a caretaker. I talk about we need to build healthy, meaningful, and impactful relationships with our mentees. Most of us got into this in one form or another because we liked young people or we liked serving others. And I think in this time, we really got to keep that at the forefront. I'm an acronym guy. I have an acronym for you guys. The acronym is TRUTH. So anybody who's taking notes, your acronym is TRUTH. To have good relationships, you got to be willing to tell the truth, and you have to be willing to listen to the truth. The T stands for trust. Do the people that you serve trust you? Do you follow through? Do you do what you say you're going to do? I said, I'm going to get you a bag of groceries. Are you there at 4 o'clock with the bag of groceries like you said you were going to do? Right? They need help with a scholarship application. They're a Palmer Scholar. They need help. Are you doing the things that you say you're going to do? So T stands for trust. R stands for respect, right? I'm all about treating people fair. I saw a quote that I don't treat people equal, I treat people fair. Some people, you can debate that a million different ways. I don't think that everybody can be treated the same. I think we can all be treated fair though. And so for me, a big part of building a great relationship is that respect factor. When you give feedback, are you giving feedback that adds value, or are you giving feedback you're giving to them? U stands for understand. Do they understand you? And to me, that's real simple is, do the people that you serve, whether they're students or whether it's your staff, do they know if you're married? Do they know if you have children? Do they know if you have a pet? Do they know where you went to college? Do they understand you? Or are you just a talking figure who tells them what to do and how to do it? And so as we build these mentoring relationships, especially in the time of COVID-19, for them to understand you, you've got to have a little bit of vulnerability. I love, some people are so concerned about their backgrounds on their Zoom that they spend so much time creating this beautiful backdrop and this beautiful image. And in reality, right below the screen, it's a mess. They're in shorts, they're in flip-flops, right? They're in socks. And so the idea is that we need to get them to understand who we are as people. And I think showing a little bit of vulnerability, I haven't shaved in 2 months. I think I'm a real person, man. The barbershop's closed. And I think small things like that lets the people that we mentor understand us better. So they need to trust us, respect us, understand us. The other T stands for thrive. Do the people that you serve, do the people that you mentor, do they thrive with you? Do you fill their cup up every day, right? When they come in, they're an empty vessel. Are we putting water in there? Or are we putting rocks in the cup and holding and actually laying their cup down, right? And it's like, what are we filling them up? Do they thrive underneath us? Are we helping them tap into their potential? As a mentor, that's one of our number one things. Are we helping them tap into their potential? And then the H stands for, can they be honest with you? I think that's huge. Me being a former college basketball coach, I think that was one thing that separated me, is I would allow players times to be honest with me. In the middle of a basketball game, and it's a tie ball game and there's 5 seconds left, that's not the time to be honest. But if I can provide opportunities before practice, after practice, or in this environment, on a Zoom call, on an email, the chance for people to give me feedback, they'll receive your feedback better. So to be a great mentor, I think you need to develop what I called, you got to be able to tell the truth. Trust, respect, understanding, do they thrive with you, and can they be honest with you? So that's kind of my quick part on what a mentor's role is. And you go ahead and give me the thumbs down when you need me to get moving there, Leandra,
You're doing great.
Cool. Thank you. Another thing I would say is, how can we support our students? And Tiffany nailed it. And she didn't quite say it this way, but she nailed it. You got to meet your students where they are. You got to meet them where they are. Now, your organization may have policies that dictate how you contact your students. I get that. But for example, if your students are on Snap or your mentees are on Snap, that may be where you are going to get the biggest response. Most teenagers are not checking email consistently. Now us, right, all of us on here are probably checking our email too many times, right? We check our email at night, we check it in the morning, we're overly in tune with our emails. And I think with young people, you got to meet them where they are. If they're on Instagram, maybe that's where you have to message them, is on Instagram, right? If it's email, it's email. If it's Zoom, FaceTime, whatever the case may be, obviously within the guidelines of your company, with your organization, meet the students where they are, right? Don't try to force a Zoom onto somebody that doesn't want to be there or just can't figure that technology out. Meet them where they are. Again, another thing that Tiffany said that I just totally loved was those real pointed questions, not just how's it going, but dial it in. How can I help you? You need to listen? Cool. Because a great mentor is a great listener. You want me to listen? Cool. A great mentor is somebody that you can confide in. They have a heart, right? An ear, a heart, and a mind. You listen, they can confide in you, tell you the things that they're struggling with, and then in their mind, they can tell you the ideas and the things that they're working towards, right? So really just making sure that, that you ask that real simple question. How can I help you? That will go a long way. Last piece, and then I'll kind of move on. I want to make sure that make yourself a priority. Like that, I think sometimes that we talked about being burnt out earlier before we got on. A few of us were talking about being burned out with Zoom meetings. Well, what's happening is I don't think that we're making ourselves a priority. We have spent our whole careers, everybody on here has probably spent their entire career serving others, always helping other people, doing the extra for somebody else. Anyone who's ever been on a plane, we all know what they always say. You put the face mask on, yourself first, then you help the people next to you. In the era of COVID-19, we've got to make sure that we take care of ourselves. I've got to be healthy emotionally. I've got to have a healthy spirit. I've got to have a healthy soul. And if I'm taking care of myself, then I can serve my clients or the people that look to me for support. I'll give you guys one more acronym and then I will shut it down. I think we all need to pass the test. Your acronym is TEST. Every day, in every way, we need to pass the test. And the test are your personal resources. Every one of us has these personal resources. If you pass this test, I think you will be more successful as a mentor and more successful in whatever endeavors you do. The T stands for time. The T stands for time. It's your time, invest it wisely. The E stands for energy. Energy is not unlimited. It's everywhere, right? But it's not unlimited. So it's important that you are putting good energy in your body, feeding yourself and I don't spend all day reading the news because the news does not give me energy, right? Energy is everywhere, right? And it's like putting the news to work for you, putting food to work for you, right? Anybody who understands news, it works for us. Now, some of us, like me, but yes.
Oh, Arvin, I think we're losing you a little bit. Cutting out a bit.
Okay, it says it's unstable. I think am I back?
Sometimes if you turn your video off, it'll allow for us to at least hear you. And sometimes that fixes the connection a bit. Yes, we can hear you.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Go back to video one time and see, start video. Am I good? Good? No good. Okay, how about now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah, that's great. Yes.
Cool. That's me and Coach Van Gundy. Anybody who knows Stan Van Gundy. But so time, energy. S stands for stress. Stress is unavoidable. Nothing you can do about it, but we have to manage. Finding stress, manage our stress in whatever form that it works for you. And then the last T is talent. I think everybody has talent, and I think this is one of the greatest opportunities in our lives to nurture our talent, to find out what you're good at, and this is the ultimate time for people who are and to start to build. So time, energy, stress, talent, those are your personal resources. manage your personal resources so that you can do your best to serve your students and your staff that you mentor. So, Coach Mosley, appreciate you guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Coach Mosley. I'm going to put myself to the test, I think, every day. That was wonderful, wonderful advice. We're going to jump in to our Q&A section of the webinar. So all of these questions were submitted prior to registration. And if we have some rolling in and if we have enough time, we can see what we can answer. But I'm going to start with a question that we have for Paula and Diana, actually. Which is, how does mentoring young students, particularly like kindergarten through third grade, look at this time where parental involvement and facilitation is key to connecting with students?
Hi, this is Paula, presidency of Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's challenging. When you look at that particular age group, we know when they're in the classroom, these children have a limited attention span and a percentage of student per teacher ratio. When you compound that you're sending these younger kids home with their parents who are not accustomed to teaching, some of whom have lost their livelihood, I've been on calls all this week basically advocating for OSPI to do more. More with the forms of providing substantial curriculums, but also providing more programs through the YMCA and Boys and Girls Clubs to give assistance to some of these parents who just need their own mental health break. And so making sure that throughout the summer that we can continue the funding for some of these programs, because we know through both the University of Washington, Harvard, and MIT, the COVID transmission rate for children within that age group is slim to none. And so we are continuing to look at the virology tests and those sort of things that show that these children are not greatly impacted. We also know the inability to have those care programs provided by the YMCA, Boys and Girls Clubs, other daycare type facilities means it's going to be a lot harder for parents to make that transition and to go back to work, which means we're going to be facing challenges with paychecks and evictions when the moratorium is lifted by Jay Inslee on June the 4th. And so I think as we look at the holistic and community approach of the child, we have to start talking about supporting local churches, local pastors, different community groups that can come in. And we used to say in the 90s, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it's going to take a village to survive COVID. So we want to make sure that Big Brothers Big Sisters are doing our part in that we're doing those well checks. We don't just call to see how the little is doing, but we ask Mom and Dad, how are you doing? What do you need? Are you okay? We're also working with different community satellite partners to make sure that we have the food insecurity and those pieces included in the support that we're providing. But as of this week, I was advocating for about $58 million that's currently going to be parked over at Department of Commerce that would continue to fund summer programs both through the school system and through the community. So if you are in the Tacoma public school systems and one of you wonderful leaders had a program but you wanted to use Tacoma's public school facilities, then we are asking them to make those facilities available to us for child care programs, for mentoring programs, so that we can best care for some of these littles. So we will continue to advocate for that, and we're just basically listening to the community and asking you, what do you need? What resources can we bring to bear? How can we serve?
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for your continued advocacy.
Yeah.
You want to add, Diana?
Yeah, there's just one small thought just to add on is that just hearing on the ground, a lot of our parents are still working in essential roles and maybe even working more. So this is a sort of underlines the importance of having a mentor in place. And it's helpful to allow that one-on-one relationship to schedule, because sometimes our parents can't be home at a given time. And so I think our learning just on the day-to-day is flexibility and being able to individualize the plan. The takeaway is that there isn't like a one-size-fits-all, copy it and reproduce it. And so the one-on-one mentoring model is coming in handy.
Thank you for that. Yeah, jump on in. Arvin.
Unmute. Okay, cool. I'm on. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So one thing that I run an after school program in the Renton School District, and one thing that we've been doing is creating videos. So I've taken a theme of the week and created a video based on whatever the word of the week is: character, accountability, discipline. So I do like a 1-minute video. They're posting it on the website. And then I'm also doing exercise videos that are kind of geared towards parents to be able to like just show the kids some exercise that they can do. And it's not really like basketball is my thing, but exercise should be everybody's thing. So really trying to do that. And then, and not to plug myself, but I'm partnering with a couple different groups to create like almost PE curriculum around basketball though, right? Because basketball is what I do, but like little 15 or 20-minute workouts that a mom and dad can, they can read it, they can look at it, they can show the kid the video, but everything behind the scenes is written for mom and dad to like have an understanding of how to coach your kid or how to get your kid to exercise without creating this big fight. And then potentially how to work out with your kid. Just take 10 minutes, go outside and jump around. So I think I love to hear what Paula was talking about that way. Like we got to make sure that we're giving mom and dad that same kind of love that we're giving to the young people, because ultimately they can either endorse what we do or they can chop down what we do. And it's really, if we can get them on the same page. So it's really good to hear what Paula was saying that way.
Yeah, I hear that as a parent myself. Anything that I can get to help me help my 3-year-old during this time is A+, right? Anything that's like labeled out like that, like here's some exercise or something. Yes, I'm all for that. Next question here is, let's take this one. Tiffany, I'm wondering if you can answer this one because it's more about college students, but how are your mentors addressing summer melt for college going students?
Yeah, so you know, we don't just, like I said, it's both staff and mentors, so we don't just leave it entirely up to the mentors to make sure that our students are, you know, ending up in college in the fall. But basically the advice I would give to anyone who is doing one-on-one mentoring, because we're able to do those check-ins with students in addition to our mentors. But yeah, the advice that I would give anyone is not to just give students a checklist and say, here's these things that you need to do, and expect if you come back a week or two later that they will have done these things. You know, things like call the admissions office, fill out this form for the IRS. You know, those are things that for us seem like, well, you just do it, right? But some of these things are very new and anxiety producing for certain students. And so you really need to offer to, you know, actually walk them through. So that's one of the things I tell mentors is please offer to, whether it's getting on Zoom, you know, it's not a resource we used in the past, but now we have that resource to be able to do that screen sharing and actually walk them through, you know, you log into your portal, since you don't want to give me your username and password, log into your, you know, WSU or Pierce College portal, and allow me to sort of see and direct you to click around on it. So just being willing to, you know, check in. Of course, the tracking is important, but making sure that you aren't just assuming that they can do those things on their own, being willing to do it with them, walk alongside them is really, really important.
Thank you. All right, this next question I'm going to open up for anyone to answer. So what does the lack of in-person connection mean for our students who have less access to technology right now?
This is Paula. It's terrible. Representing also the Commission on African American Affairs, what we know are if you come from a community of disparate impact, meaning you're Black, Brown, Indigenous, LGBTQ, when OSPI made their thoughtful decision to close the schools, they didn't factor in that there are children on IEPs and 524s and that not every child has internet. I look at myself as a prime example, right? I live in Federal Way, but my children, because we used to live almost close to Bellevue, have gone to school in the Issaquah School District. And that school district, when you enroll your child, they ask you, well, do you want the Mac or the Dell computer, or do you want the iPad? We were in a position to say neither. We have those resources, but you go down to Tacoma Public Schools and they don't have those resources. You go to the CD and they don't have those resources. So I think when we compound that with the fact that parents who are teaching, who aren't accustomed to teaching, who don't have the right curriculums or the resources, what is our plan as a community to make sure that when we send our children back to school in September and October, we're not sending them back 7 or 8 months behind? Children, we don't see a level of children being now retained and falling behind a year because the state failed to have those resources. And so I think at a very high level, we continue to push on Superintendent Chris Reichel. We continue to push on Governor Inslee. We continue to push on Sharon Tamika Santos, who chairs education in the House. We continue to push on Senator Linda Wilson and Lisa Wellman in the Senate and say, this isn't good enough. We're going to need financial resources for community partners. We're going to need financial resources for nonprofits that serve these kids in these areas. And we're going to need to have a system that allows for what I call grace and mercy for children that were already systemically left out of the system, and now we're going to send them back behind, whether that is waiving ACTs and SCTs and some of the requirements to get into UW and WSU and all the other community colleges, to making sure that we are not punishing children for being systemically poor in a pandemic. So we're looking at it from a holistic approach, but it's one of those things where we've got to have a workable partnership with local, municipal, state, and federal government. And I'm kind of pulling on all four of those levers with both hands right now.
Thank you for that. Any other thoughts? Okay, we'll move on to another question. So if mentoring can't happen in person, which it can't right now, what else can community members do to bridge the gap for students who need some extra support? And maybe I'll pose it like, in what ways can community members either become mentors or help to support students?
Well, I think being active in the community, right? I mean, just you go spend 10 minutes on Facebook. I'm seeing barbershops, I'm seeing churches, I'm seeing the folks in my community doing food drives and handing out food and, you know, and doing drive-bys for birthdays and doing drive-bys for graduations. And, you know, I think it's just reminding young people that we still love them, right? Even though we can't see them, that we still love them. And and again, I'm willing to bet that everyone on this call and this Zoom at some point started their career because of their love for young people, or for their, you know, their willingness to work hard for young people. And I think we just don't want to lose sight of why we got into this business, or why this business, right, of mentoring, or this business of serving others. Just constantly, you know, but again, asking, just trying to ask. You know, you see somebody doing stuff. I saw somebody that needed clothes, or you know, I just went in the closet and got a bag of clothes because some folks needed some clothes, right? I think just being willing to step up, and whatever you feel good doing, right? Don't feel like you got to do what somebody else does. Whatever you feel good to support your community, I think it's important that you do that, you know?
Coach, I would also say for people not to lose track of during this time, you are enough, and what you have to offer is enough. And so whether you have a job, or you've lost, or you're going through a difficult time and you're sitting around just trying to figure out your own sanity, now's a good time to share whatever the gift was that God gave you with a child. And so I would say, call up big brothers, big sisters and say, hey, I've got some time on my hand I can mentor. Diana's going to be giving out hundreds of bags of groceries for Mother's Day, and we want to do it for Father's Day. You know what would be helpful? If people could go down and help her give those groceries out to her littles, it gives parents an opportunity to meet the agency. It gives the community an opportunity to work together in a collaborative fashion. It gives people that maybe Diana has not engaged with before a chance to meet her. And then they can spread the word about the good news. There may be somebody out there that needs food security that we're not aware of. There may be a child out there that needs a mentor that we're not aware of. And so I tell people, you know, the show continues. So what can you do? Give your gift. Whether it's an hour a day, that adds up to 5 hours a week. If you've got an hour a month, we do virtual mentoring. We're doing virtual matches. Raise your hand and give your gift, because everybody can think of something they have that somebody else can use. Encourage people to continue to sign up for the program.
I totally echo that. I just realized I've been on mute, so I didn't understand why every time I started talking, somebody else. But let me just say, we are open for business. Pierce County has some amazing programs, Palmer Scholars, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. All of it we do it informally, we do it formally. But echo what Paula just said. We are matching and connecting people to young people, and the show is definitely going on.
I'll add too, at the high school level, you know, there's lots of great organizations that are working with students at the high school level, communities and schools and College Success Foundation, and you could reach out to these advisors working with those programs, and I'm sure they would have a job for you if you're interested in helping students, whether it's something as simple as, you know, I have a student interested in a certain career and I want to do an informational interview for that student. There's lots of things that I'm sure that could be helpful.
what just a couple tidbits. I know because we've gone a lot of different directions. So I just want to give out 2 tidbits. One, we talk about mentoring. I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. Those are my youngest. I have an older one, but those are my youngest. I've tried to get them to help mentor some of their classmates by doing FaceTime or Zoom calls, especially when there's a couple kids in my son's class that maybe don't have the same stability that my kids do. And so I've asked that mom or that dad, hey, you want to set up a FaceTime? And then let the kids go sit on the bed and, at their house, and they can show off their Legos. And I think they watched YouTube for 20 minutes the other day together, but they were giggling. And you have 7-year-olds mentoring each other, right? Which is, we can still manipulate it to a degree and control it, but that's pretty powerful to see 2 7-year-olds walk out of a FaceTime or a Zoom feeling a little bit realized. And I think sometimes we always go top down, right? The top down, we don't realize that mentoring on the way up is that peer-to-peer mentoring has some serious value as well. So that's one thing that we've used, at our house.
Thank you. That's a great suggestion. Yes, Tiffany.
I piggyback off of that, at the high school level, we had a young lady reach out and say, I'm super demotivated right now. I'm really, really struggling. And we had another student who, we thought this will maybe be a perfect fit, and they were able to get on the phone, and, the student who is already in college was able to talk to that younger high school student to say, I struggled with mental health issues too, yet here I am doing really, really well in college. So same thing, if you have a student that you're working with who you who's struggling, Palmer's College would be willing to give you a really high achieving, amazing young person who's doing well to connect with that person.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have time to do one more question really quickly, and then we'll wrap up Q&A. And if everyone can maybe just give like a quick 20-second jump in on this question, because I think you all have something to contribute. But how might what we are experiencing right now during COVID-19 and how we are doing mentorship, how might that change the way mentorship looks in the fall and in the future past that?
I can start. It's like everybody is experiencing. It's hard to have a crystal ball. No one has the crystal ball. My initial thought is just that at a minimum, we may start incorporating more virtual connections than we did before in the menu of options of how mentors might connect. It seems like our world is moving in that direction. And we will be making decisions about best practices regarding requirement for in-person connections. I don't think we're ready to give up on that. And we'll, if we're allowed to be in person, we're going to be jumping back in the game and making sure that that's an available option for our young people in our matches.
My 20 seconds is so simple. People, it's not 1989. When I started the program, the only way for me to work with my mentor was in person. I have a 17-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 24-year-old, and a 30-year-old. What worked for me in 1989 does not work for my children in 2020. We need to listen to the community and to the kids. We need virtual mentoring programs. We need apps. We need to be on Snapchat. You have to reach the children where they are, not where you'd like to drag them. I think what COVID has demonstrated to us is that a lot of our systems were not prepared, and they were antiquated, and they were outdated. And so a lot of us have had to jump through innovation hoops that some of us have been doing for many, many years. I have chore apps that I was using 6 months ago for 35,000 kids that I was mentoring. They do their chores, they track it on the app, and it automatically sends the parent an invoice and says, you owe me this much allowance. Why doesn't everybody do it that way? It can be 50 cents or it can be $50. They do a lot of things, and they're smarter than we think they are. We need to get serious about meeting our children from age 3 to 21 where they are. Technology, 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 technology.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll add that I really feel like, kind of to echo what I was saying before, that a lot of this might turn out to be for the best. I mean, the silver lining, I guess, for all of this, not that we're grateful that all of this is happening the way it is, but that we are having to take advantage of these technologies. Like I was over here cheering when Diana was talking about the, dropping ingredients off at a student's porch and then cooking together. That is fantastic. That there's I'm going to put that in my mentor newsletter that I sent out today or tomorrow. You know, there's just these, it's requiring us to be creative in a way that I think maybe we were a little more complacent before. And I think that's really neat. And so I'm just hoping, yeah, we'll be able to hold on to a lot of this for the future.
Yeah, and along those same lines, the creativity, man, we got to think outside the box. And I think it's really hurt some people to like have to think outside the box. And I think it's forced all of us to be a little bit more creative for the better. And, you know, like Paula said, we got to meet the students where they are, man. And if they're on Snapchat, Instagram, whatever, Google Duos, we got to get them there. You know, we got to meet them there. So, yeah, I just think keep doing what we're doing that way and keep supporting each other is part of the future, right? Continue to support each other as best we can, sharing best practices, sharing what's worked, sharing what's not working, and just keep, you know, serving these people, these young people that we love.
Coach, I remember when I learned that Venmo allowed me to move money and it wasn't a foreign language, because my child kept saying Venmo me. I was like, what is a Venmo? The Cash App. I didn't know, because I mean, like, if I wanted money, I would just transfer it on the line with the bank. And my daughter was like, stop being stupid. It sends it to me in minutes. And I Googled it and I go, God help me, I'm old, right? Now I like go on to Venmo, I got Cash App, Square, everything you can think of, right? Because now I have to meet people where they are. Like right now, Leandra, if I wanted to split coffee with you, I could have Venmoed you $10 while we were talking here. That's how quickly, guys, we have to acclimate to what the young people are doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm just going to give a quick update before we say goodbye. So for those of you who are listening, please join us next week for another Friday Forum. We're going to be featuring the topic, the class of 2020. We're all thinking about Tacoma's graduating seniors and how closures might affect their ability to prepare and enroll in a post-secondary program. So please tune in next week, same time, and hear from 3 partners who have been working around the clock to get seniors ready for life after high school. You can register for Friday Forums by signing up to our newsletters on our website at graduatetacoma.org. Thank you, panelists, so much. Paula, Diana, Arvin, Tiffany, for your time and sharing a little bit about the work that is happening right now and how you're serving Tacoma youth. We'll let you get back to your workday. Thank you to those who are listening. Stay safe, healthy, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was wonderful. I enjoyed it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.